Good evening. I can see we've got some people coming into the room, and I've got a few people joining me by video tomorrow. So I'm going to get started straight away. I love to run on time. I always have my clock right in front of me here. Beautiful to be with you. I'm going to share my screen and get going. And I promise to have you out and away into the rest of your evening by 8 o'clock. And I hope to have some time for questions at the end. And if I don't, you can email me questions and I'll be sending you some resources tomorrow anyway. So it's great to be with you. Thank you for joining me tonight. This is a webinar about sleep and well-being. Started these webinars in 2020, and I did one in 2021 about the big three: nutrition, exercise, and sleep, the triumvirate of optimal performance, otherwise known as. And I had so many questions about sleep that I realized that dedicating a webinar to sleep was a good idea. So I did one in 2021, one in 2022. This is 2023. They are revised every time with new research. And as many of you know, I'm a bit of a research nerd, so I just love going in and looking at what the latest research is. So if you were here last year, this is different. If you were here in 2021, it's different. What I want to do with you tonight is take you through a highly researched but very practical webinar. It's all about crafting high quality sleep routines, and they're like building blocks to well-being. Without high quality sleep, we really struggle to be well on every other well-being dimension. And certainly our physical health, our emotional health, physiological health, our social and emotional well-being, all of them are affected by poor sleep. So I'd like you to see tonight as creating some building blocks that will create for you over time a really strong, high-quality sleep routine. And you may have that already, and tonight might just be an affirmation for you that you're doing all the right things. I hope so. Let's acknowledge country. I'm on Wadawurrung country here in the most beautiful part of the world, I think, Point Lonsdale, Victoria. And I took this photo the other morning after a great night's sleep on the Point Lonsdale backbench. I acknowledge the Wadawurrung people, the traditional owners of this beautiful, beautiful land and waterways and sky. And certainly acknowledge with gratitude all that they've done and continue to do to care for country. I'd like you to take a moment, if you'd like to acknowledge country where you are. Okay. Many of you know me. I've got colleagues in the room tonight. So beautiful to have you here. I have friends in the room. I have family members in the room. I have coaching clients in the room. I have some organisational clients in the room. It's beautiful to be with you. And it means we've got an age range tonight of many, many, many decades. So I hope I'm going to be able to meet your needs. And whilst sleep changes over our lifetime, there are quite a few essentials that do not change. They stay the same. So you know me, many of you know me. My name is Lisa Barker. I am the founder and facilitator at Heliotropia. Heliotropia means turn towards the sun. And in nature and in psychology, the heliotropic effect is the tendency for all living systems, including us, to turn towards what enables life and away from what depletes or detracts from a healthy life. And if we do this enough, we may thrive in life. My qualifications are there to reassure you, to say that I have long experience both in education and in wellbeing science and in organisational coaching and in mental health first aid. So what I talk to you about tonight is evidence-based. I don't make things up, and I don't look on the internet and just grab things. I'm very serious about providing a research-based, strong research scaffolded wellbeing advice. So here we are. Humans hopefully spend a third of our lives asleep, yet we're the only creature on the planet that actually deliberately stops ourselves from going to sleep when we need to. Now, the big cat here, the lion, is one other creature that can hold off sleep if there is a predator around or if they are starving. But every other animal on this planet, and in fact, every other living being, because we all have a circadian rhythm, every other one respects that they need to spend some time asleep. Now, the rates here for us, 70% of US citizens are estimated to be sleep deprived. That probably translates closely to what we have here in Australia. A third of people around the world sleep 6 hours or less, and this rate has doubled over the last 50 years. As a Western society, we are suffering from sleep sickness, and there is no other animal on the planet that chooses to voluntarily deprive themselves of sleep unless it's an emergency. But we do glorify activity. So we're a society, we are a post-industrial, post-modern capitalist society, and we either consume or we produce. And there's not a lot of time in between those two things to actually rest and relax and digest. And I'm as guilty of this as anybody else. I've found in the last few years since I started running my own business that busy, I've really learned what busy is now. I thought I knew before with 30 years of teaching, but I certainly know now what busy means. But we actually have to be able to stop and realize that sleep is the foundational bedrock of everything else. And I'm not sure I signed up for a 24/7 life anyway. This quote from David Dinges, I won't read it out, you can have a look at it there, but it's just about how we've come to value time so much that we see sleep as an annoying interference, almost a wasteful state, and that we don't seem to have enough willpower to keep working and playing harder, when we finally say we're going to sleep. But I know I didn't sign up for that, and I'm not sure you did either. And technology, of course, is fueling this tech-enabled bedroom culture. And what we need to know from that, and there's tons of research, and as many of you know, another great passion of mine is digital wellbeing. Our sleep is really fragmented and disturbed by technology. So many of you have young people in your lives, whether they're the people you teach, the people that you are in your family and raising. And this is just a massive, massive problem. And the thing to remember about technology is they don't care whether you get a good night's sleep or not. Even though we have a plethora of health apps, including sleep tracking apps, and I'm going to talk about them later, technology doesn't care about any of that. They care about your eyeballs. Their currency is totally based on frequency and engagement. It's not a sophisticated model. It's not. It is absolutely based on frequency, engagement, and then the third pillar is data collection. And so we need to be thinking about this all the time, absolutely all the time. So this is your brain after a night of no sleep. And you can see here, we've got the prefrontal cortex at the front here. And prefrontal cortex is where all of our decisions are made. So That's where we plan, we problem solve, we make decisions, we are divergently thinking, we're creatively and critically analysing, we're judging. That's where our motivation comes from. That's where our cognitive processing happens. And that's also where we emotionally process and self-regulate our emotional states. And so this is where, after a night of no sleep, this is where there is absolutely poor functioning. Also poor functioning to our motor cortex, so the ways in which we move about in space, poor sensory functioning and poor vision as well. And we know this motor cortex one, after we haven't slept very well, there's a delay period between our reactions are delayed, basically. So we know that sleep affects our brain enormously, and we'll talk a bit more about that soon. So we all learnt to sleep in utero. It's a very natural process. And if anyone's ever raised a baby or been a baby themselves, you'll know that sleep is sacrosanct for a baby. It is, you would never deprive a baby of sleep. Because it is needed so much. They're literally growing and changing and developing, and sleep is a huge part of that process. So, but what gets in the way as we grow? And so we're just going to pause for a moment here, and I just want you to have a think about what are a few of the barriers in your own life that block a good night's sleep? And you might even jot them down, while you're thinking about this. One way to phrase this is, what keeps you awake at night? And that might be from a physical perspective, like not actually even going to bed when you should, or it might be from a rumination and worry perspective, the things that perhaps you're trying to process in the middle of the night. Have a go and see if you can just jot down a few barriers in your own life that block a good night's sleep, that lock the gate to a good night's sleep. While you're doing that, I'm going to move on to the next slide and ask you to think about, are you currently handling some of those blockers, some of those sleep blockers? So if you have had a chance to write down a couple of things, do you currently have a strategy? And you may not. And if you don't, just draw a line next to it, because you may not have a strategy just yet for particular barriers that you already know about. We know ourselves better than anybody else knows us. And we can often articulate, if we just take time and stop and think about it, we can often articulate perhaps what is getting in the way of us actually being our highest potential self. And when it comes to sleep, maybe we already know. Maybe it's that tendency to binge watch something and to keep going, even though it's past the time that you really want to go to bed and your body's already producing melatonin and you're yawning, but, just one more episode. Maybe it's that. Maybe it's that you are engaging with social media late at night and it kind of riles you up and gets you going, and actually possibly creates cortisol in your system. Perhaps it's that. Maybe you have a partner who makes it hard for you to sleep well. Maybe that's part of the problem, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. Maybe it's food and alcohol too late at night, too much too late, and therefore when your body wants to actually go into a homeostatic place at night, it's too busy processing food and alcohol. Maybe it's exercise late at night, and so your body is actually activated to a point where it's very hard for it to start to settle. So there may be some very good reasons why you're not sleeping terribly well. And you may already have some strategies, but you might have forgotten them. It's easy to forget these things where our world is so crowded with everything else. It can be hard to think of the strategies that we currently have. So I wonder if you could have a go, and you might have done this just now, writing down a few of the things that actually do support high quality sleep for you. I know for me that I went through a terrible period in 2017 of an acute injury. So I had nights where I did not sleep at all. And I had several of those nights in a short space of time. And it was just absolutely terrifying how quickly I descended into a really depressive state. And so perhaps you've already learned the hard way what does actually make a difference for you, and what supports high quality sleep. If you have, just write down now some of those things. And I'm encouraging you to do this because we do forget these really life-enabling, life-giving strategies from time to time. So it's good to actually take a moment to write them down. So sleep deprivation, it has many long-term consequences. And because we know that sleep regulates so many processes in our body, long-term sleep deprivation actually alters our metabolism, and it increases our stress, and it affects our concentration and our memory, and in fact our overall cognition. And so we also become very irritable. If you've ever had a short fuse and maybe you've kind of jumped down someone's throat at work or at home, you might be able to just actually weave that back to a poor night's sleep the night before. If you've ever made careless mistakes or got very frustrated with technology or something not working for you, it may be that you have not had a very good sleep. And if you're having trouble regulating your behavior, it may be that you are sleep deprived. So there's been lots of tests done on this. One of the really interesting ones is that it's been found that a small nightly decrease in sleep has a serious cumulative effect. So, for example, if you have 10 days in a row where you are sleeping less than you normally do, so let's say you normally need 7.5 to 8 hours and you're sleeping just 6, this results in this cumulative sleep debt. And what that means, it's the same level of impairment on the 10th day as being awake for 24 hours straight. That really is something to pause and think about, because sometimes we can go for a very long time just depriving ourselves of sleep. We're not having a whole sleepless night, but we are in a very busy work cycle, and we are actually creating this cumulative sleep debt. So some of the misconceptions about sleep are really interesting. It's not one period of blissful unconsciousness. I think I used to think that before I looked into all of the research on this. Sleep has a whole lot of transitions, and you probably know that already, and we all know about REM sleep. But some of those transitions include microarousals and periods of wakefulness. And I'm going to show you a graph on that in a minute. Yes, we move position. We often move position at night, and we might go to the bathroom. And we naturally cycle through these 4 distinct sleep stages. And here they are here. And these change as we grow older. The length of these changes. So stage 1 is that very light sleep, very easy to wake in that light sleep. In fact, sometimes we think we're awake when we're in light sleep. Moderate sleep is that next level. And then we go into that very deep sleep, the deepest form of sleep, which is N3, the slow wave sleep. That's the unconscious sleep. And then, of course, rapid eye movement or dreaming sleep, which is not the deepest phase of sleep. Have a look here. This is a typical sleeping pattern for a healthy older adult. I believe this is 40 to 64. if you have a look, the black is awake. So if we go across here, we've got the hours down the bottom, and we have these stages here on the side. So we can see that this really deep sleep, the unconscious sleep, is early in the night. It's in the first half of the night. We can see that the light sleep is right throughout the night, and so is the moderate sleep right throughout the night. We can see that REM we have in bursts, and they're usually every 90 minutes. We have these bursts of REM. And then we can also see that for a healthy older adult, there's also time awake through the night. It's not very long, but there are periods of wakefulness, and there are more as we lead towards morning. Now, this was a revelation to me. And if you look at this website below, sleephealth.sa.gov.au, it's an excellent resource. There's so many resources on this. But this really was helpful for me because it actually created a more realistic understanding of my own sleep cycle for me. And so here's how it changes over the lifespan. Sleep latency is the time it takes to get to sleep. And here we have, for a 5-year-old, right on the left here, we can see that they spend most of their time in these stages, quite a lot in stage 2 and quite a lot in stage 3. But if we go up, and you can find yourself somewhere along here, you'll find that once we get kind of into middle age, then that very deep sleep is actually not as long as it used to be. And the REM sleep is actually shorter as well. And this time awake is also increasing. So it's interesting just to realize that our sleep patterns change over the period of our life. So sleep latency, the time that we spend awake, is an issue for a lot of people. And particularly people can find it hard to fall asleep, or they wake up in the night and they find themselves awake. And if we just go back a couple, it might be here. It might be this one in just the second, between the second and third hour, or this one between the fourth and fifth hour, that we wake and find ourselves awake. And then we start ruminating on that. And so this is an idea that has been researched. This is about actually not waiting longer than 20 minutes. So unless you are very good at mindfulness and relaxation techniques that can allow you to fall back to sleep, it's suggested that you actually get out of bed. But with these conditions, go to a quiet, warm place. So a chair, comfortable chair with a blanket, a very low light. Don't turn on any big LED lights. LED lights, they're fantastic in terms of their energy saving, but they're actually terrible in terms of our circadian rhythm and light pollution. At this place, this quiet, warm place, you have a calming book that you've read before, and you return to bed. You pick up the book, you start reading, and you return to bed as soon as you feel that melatonin hormone descending into your body. So as soon as you start to feel like you might be getting close to dropping back to sleep. And then you just walk back, no lights or very low lights, and get into bed and hopefully go back to sleep. Love you to try that if sleep latency is an issue for you at the moment. For me, just diving into all of the research and also having been through a really terrifying experience, acute no sleep period, my biggest takeaway is that sleep is actually involuntary. We don't get to choose when we fall asleep. And it's very varied, and it's very rare to be unconscious for the entire night. So because we don't get to choose, we have to be incredibly deliberate in creating optimum conditions for sleep so that we can be up and out there and seeing beautiful sunrises like this one on the right here. This is at Point Lonsdale. And we can enjoy these kind of beautiful moments in life because we're not absolutely exhausted and sleep deprived. So it's important to be realistic, and that can help relieve our sleep worry ruminations. And we also have different sleep chronotypes. I am a morning chronotype, so I do like to get up early, but a lot of people are evening chronotypes. They stay up late in the night. They might be up until 1 a.m, busy, still doing things, still incredibly active, and then they go to bed. But of course, they need to sleep later in the morning. And then, of course, we can be somewhere in between. Our sleep chronotypes can change over time. And in fact, when we're adolescents, they get later and later. They move towards evening before they revert back to earlier in our 20s. And so I know I have teachers in the room tonight, and if you're working with adolescents at the moment, and just spare them a little bit of grace, just because the way in which we've set up our post-industrial structures, they're all for morning chronotype people. They're, the school starts early, work starts early. It's fabulous for morning chronotypes, but it's pretty terrible for adolescents and for people who are fairly fixed evening chronotypes. So why do we sleep? Well, we sleep because it's the one period of sensory isolation that we get in a 24-hour cycle. And our bodies actually have a whole lot of things they need to do while we are sleeping. And these things all happen. There's amazing research on this. And, the sleep research is only about 50 years old, because before that, why do we sleep was usually answered to cure sleepiness. So it's really in the last 50 years that we've learned an awful lot about sleep. So these are some of the things that happen during sleep. At a cellular level, our bodies are actually working on restoration and repair. When we think about how stimulated we are these days in particular, this one period of sensory isolation, it just makes so sense that the human body and that the mammal has created this adaptation so that we can actually work on some of these processes. And sleep is like hitting the save button on memories. You'll know this. You'll know if you haven't had a good night's sleep, then you're just hopeless cognitively the next day. So the circadian rhythm, you've heard about this, the suprachiasmatic nucleus, I think it is called, that is at the base of our skull at the back. And there it is, suprachiasmatic nucleus. And it is like a clock. It's this incredible clock. And here it is. It's at the base of our brain at the back. And the only living things that don't have a circadian rhythm are creatures that live for less than a day. Everything else has a circadian rhythm. And they are synchronized with environmental cues. There are two in particular, light and temperature. And then that light is transformed into a timed signal, and then that synchronizes every other system in our body. So every other organ in our body, and I just find this completely fascinating, every other organ in our body has a mini clock as well. So this is big super duper clock, and then all the others are small circadian rhythm regulators on every organ, every system in our body. So messing with our clocks is a really big deal, because if we do this, we're also messing with gene expression, cell division, DNA repair, biochemical processes, physiological processes, behavioral functioning. We just don't want to mess with our clocks. Now, you might ask, shift work, aren't they really messing with their clock? Yes, they are, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a moment. So here are some poor sleep habits. Now, remember, a little earlier on tonight, I asked you to write down anything that you know at the moment that's currently getting in the way of good night's sleep for you. I wonder if any of these were on your list. So tech use, light exposure, sleep onset delay. That is when we delay the time we need to go to bed. One of the great recommendations around this, we all know about setting an alarm clock to get up, but you set an alarm clock to go to bed. And so if you want to be in bed by 10, you set your alarm clock at 9:45 and it goes off and you have to go to bed because the alarm has told you to do that. So also daytime napping, occasionally people will do this, but if you do this after about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, that's going to be a problem. Alcohol, we all know that alcohol is a depressant and it sends us to sleep initially, but then it's a stimulant. And then it actually, as our organs are processing the alcohol, it then becomes a stimulant. So it's really rotten for good sleep. Mistimed eating, of course, or going to bed mistimed. Shift work, caffeine. I love my coffee, but I only have one and I have it very, very early. And again, because coffee has a half-life, let me get this right, I think it has a half-life of 6 hours. So that means 12 hours after you've had your cup of coffee, there's still a quarter strength of caffeine in your system. So for me, that's too much. It affects my sleep. So I have one very, very early in the morning. Shift work, of course, jet travel. Many of us have felt that, just that dreadful feeling of jet lag. That's extreme sleep deprivation, of course, but and you know how poorly you function when you are jet lagged. Many people have a low to moderate level of sleep deprivation all the time. Warm temperature in the room, that is definitely a poor sleep habit, to sleep in a warm room. And exercising in the evening, and of course fear and anxiety and not feeling safe, and that's not always our choice, but having a lot of cortisol in our system is a terrible, it's a serious blocker of sleep. And sickness, of course, sometimes we're sick or we have pain and it's very hard to sleep. So this is what happens though. When you feel tired most of the time, that's not good and we don't like that, but actually drowsiness is deadly. This is the sleep debt. It just builds and builds and builds until we crash. And sometimes we actually crash, which is, we all know that some of the statistics around car and truck accidents and sleep deprivation are really, really frightening. And I'm just looking to see if I've got, Harvard Business Review study on sleep deprivation found that when we are sleep deprived and we are driving, our functions are reduced by 20 to 50%. So have a think about that one. So here's a great chart. See where you are on this, or where your children are, or the children you teach, or the people you love. We start off life with this incredibly big, beautiful sleep. And then as we go through life, it's almost halved. Have a look at that. For a 65-year-old and older, it's halved. And sleep exists, the amount of sleep we need exists on a bell curve. And so if you can imagine the bell curve, most of us are going to fall in the middle here. If I go down to 26 to 64, most of us are going to be 7 to 9. That's the big bell curve, the big average. But 6 hours, that's one end of the bell curve, and 10 hours is the other end of the bell curve. But not many people fall into those two categories. Most of us are in the 7 to 9 hours. I know for me, I'm about 8 hours. And you may know what your recommended amount is, but if you don't, one way to do that is when you are on a holiday and you don't have to get up, actually for a period of a week, note down how long you're sleeping and average it out. Like the first night you're on holiday, you'll probably sleep a lot, but average it out over the week and you'll be able to find your recommended, your set point for how many hours of sleep you need. So sleep disorders are very serious conditions. I'm not a doctor, so I'm not going to comment too much on them, but I do want to show you this graph. And a lot of the science, a lot of the research I use in my webinars and that I use for myself is from the Harvard Sleep Science Center. Really an incredible resource. I'll give you a link to that tomorrow. But let's look at, this is sleep apnea, which is a really, really serious sleep disorder, and sleep apnea has been found to develop over time, and people who have sleep apnea are at higher risk of many, many things, including cardiovascular disease, also cognitive neurological disorders such as dementia. So if you look here, we'll start at the start of the graph here. These two people, one has sleep apnea and one which is untreated, the other has no sleep apnea. And so at the start of the graph, and these are years along the bottom, start of the graph, they're both 100% alive. Now, if we follow the no sleep apnea over a 20-year period, you'll see that 95% of these people are still alive 20 years later. Let's follow the untreated severe sleep apnea. Over a 20-year period, have a look here, we're right down to 55%. So 45% of those people have died. If you suspect that you have sleep apnea or that someone that you sleep with has sleep apnea, do something about it tomorrow. I can't stress that highly enough. Do something about it tomorrow. Disordered breathing. If people were doing that during the day, we would go to the doctor straight away. Yet people, for some reason during the night, people can leave it untreated and not even realize they have it. So I would really love to encourage you to do something about that if you suspect it, even have the smallest inkling of a suspicion that you might have it or someone you love might have it. So quality of life, we know this. I'm going to whiz through these. We know we become much more sensitive emotionally and socially. There was a great experiment done where a group of people were shown some different images, and the sleep deprived group reacted way more strongly to the mildly distressing images than the group that had normal sleep. The group that had normal sleep, when they were exposed to images that were distressing, they were distressed, but the other group that actually had were sleep deprived, they reacted to low stressors in much the same way the non-deprived group responded to high stressors, if that makes sense. That was a very interesting study. So basically, the latest research on this that I was able to find that was very good is that insufficient sleep, excess sleep, we can sleep too much, more than 10 hours is not good for us. Poor or otherwise impaired sleep, such as disordered through a disorder, such as sleep apnea, especially in the long term, is concerning since it may result in severe physical, mental, and social consequences in one's quality of life. So we absolutely have to do something about it. Stress is a big reason why we might not sleep. I'm going to skip through this though, because in the interests of time, except to say that this is a stressed brain at the bottom, and this prefrontal cortex, where we do all of those amazing things that I mentioned before, all of those executive functioning, it's literally switched off. So when we are stressed, we revert back to our amygdala and we become highly emotional and we exhibit compulsive behaviors. Right back here in this ancient part of the brain. The prefrontal cortex is a relatively new part of the human brain. So stress is something that we do need to manage because it is going to affect our sleep quite seriously. This is your brain in meltdown. Okay, so here are some sleep essentials for you. Now, all of these have a lot of research behind them. And I can certainly provide you with research papers if you would like tomorrow. You only need to ask. Okay, absolutely essential is no electronics, no screens, TVs, phones, iPads, readers, even low light readers in the bedroom. Now, sometimes when I say that, if I'm in a workshop in a room with people, like people kind of gasp and say, you cannot be serious. I am serious. I'm absolutely serious. If you are serious about high quality sleep, then I am serious about this. Now, my electronics and phones went out of my room actually during COVID, so it's probably close to 3 years ago now. And they're in another room and they're around a corner. I can hear the alarm, so I can set the alarm, but they are a long way away from me. And I think it makes a huge difference, but there's certainly research to show that it does as well, because we're developing these technology addictions, and that means that it can be very hard not to engage with our phone even in the middle of the night. A regular bed and wake time. Talked about the circadian rhythm. Now, for people who are shift workers, their circadian rhythm is really messed up. And so what I would say to that is they need to create a nocturnal rhythm, but also consider how they can not do shift work for too many years in a row, because it is seriously messing with a whole lot of systems. Stimulants, I've talked about that. Exercise is very essential. If you don't do any exercise during the day and then you expect to sleep like a baby at night, forget it. You actually do need to be moving your body and exercising, and that means more than kind of moving the mouse. But morning is much better than the evening. Limiting alcohol, very important. I like this 1-2 rule. That's 1 drink 2 hours before bedtime, or none at all is of course the other alternative. That's the gold standard, is none at all if you want to sleep really well. But if you like a drink in the evening, 1 drink 2 hours before bedtime. And I remember doing this last year, and a local person came along, and then I saw them, and they said, oh, I love that alcohol rule, that 2 drinks 1 hour before bed. I'm really trying to stick to that. No, it's 1 drink 2 hours before bedtime. Low level stress, of course. Anything that gets our cortisol going at bedtime is a bad thing. And so if you're going to engage in social media, make sure it's passive, that it's just, you're just scrolling and enjoying it, not being activated, not commenting on Twitter, commenting on Instagram, having your 10 cents worth about an issue. That's all cortisol inducing. A quiet, dark, cool room is very important without any light sources. I want you to think about a cave here. We are, we think we're this incredibly developed and sophisticated higher order mammal, and we are, except that we still have deeply within our DNA generations, hundreds, thousands of generations behind us, and sleeping in a dark cave worked for us, and it still works. So a dark, quiet, cool room. If you can't get this, work out how you can. I've been known to get to hotel rooms and put black plastic up on the wall, on the windows, particularly if I have jet lag, just so that I can create my cave, because I know how essential this is. And then this one, the 1 hour unwind routine. This is really, really lovely. I do this every night. I have a routine that I go through, and it's not fixed and hard and fast, but I have this lovely winding down. The lights are dimmed, and I'm just really doing lovely, restful, homeostatic things in order to get myself ready for bed. And I put down pray if you like. I remember as a small child from a big Catholic family, we would all kneel down and pray before bed. And when I think back on it now, it's just so quaint and kind of hilarious. But I think it probably did in some way just slow us all down and and prepare us as children to get into bed. So it's important to know what's giving you sleep, what your sleep givers are, and what your sleep stealers are. We've all got them, but we want to put our energy, devote our energy and attention towards our sleep givers, and we want to minimize as much as possible our sleep stealers. So, might you design your own wind down routine? Here are some ideas. Is there one more there? Yes. Okay. So, and we're going to actually set some goals tonight. I'm going to show you that sheet in a minute. But these are some of the things that are recommended for a wind down routine. Now, why do we need to do this? Because we're actually living our lives at an insanely frenetic, fragmented, crazy pace. And I'm old enough to think back, to remember back to another generation. And I know there are people in the room that are not there yet. They're only in their second or third decade of life, but I can think back, and this is frenetic and crazy. And so we do need to transition, to make a transitional, it's almost like a bridge from the modern day crazy world into the world of sensory isolation, which we need. Remember, we needed it for all of those incredible cell repair type activities that our body needs to do. So decide on an appropriate and regular time for bed. I gave you that little tip about working out what your set point is, but you know this, you know what a good time for you to go to bed is and what a good time for you to wake up is. Decide on it and commit to it. Get all the electronics well away. Recharge them all overnight, but you need to recharge separately. Your recharging is very different to theirs, and you need to recharge without them. Lower your lights around the home. So dimmer switches are great. If you don't have dimmers, lamps are fantastic. So actually set up a couple of little lamps in different places, and as the night progresses, you turn off all the big overhead lights and you put the lamps on. You are just transitioning here. A herbal tea might work for you. It definitely works for me. A warm bath or shower definitely works, but not boiling hot. That's just going to stimulate you. Listening to music can really help as you prepare for bed. There's research to show this. A gratitude journal can help if you like that kind of thing, but then there's science behind it as well. There was a study done back in 2009, I believe, and I'm just looking over there because I was reading it earlier today, that in getting into a pattern of just sitting down and writing down 3 moments that you're grateful for is really fantastic for your pre-bed cognition. So it's just winding you down. It's lowering the cortisol. It's increasing some of those beautiful endorphins and positive emotions and preparing you for rest. Reading in bed. I love to read in bed, paper copy, but you don't want to be reading a highly triggering book in bed, because that's actually not conducive. Remember, we're trying to turn down the cortisol. So that's not conducive to preparing to move into this homeostasis place. And prepare your cave. And I've put down there high quality new mattress. Your mattress, if your mattress is longer than 10 years old, older than 10 years old, you probably need to replace it. I mean, give yourself a fighting chance by having a reasonably good mattress. Okay, sleep trackers. You may use one already, but there's some good research coming out about these. 2 universities in the US, Northwestern University and Rush University, did a big study on sleep trackers. And they found that they're creating orthosomnia, which is another way of saying correct sleep or perfect sleep. And it's unhealthy. It's an unhealthy quest to achieve perfect sleep, which is not actually achievable. As we saw, the sleep cycle means that we move through different stages. So this is why sleep trackers are not recommended wearables that you wear overnight. I mean, seriously. They provide unreliable and inconsistent data. They make people obsessive about sleep, their sleep. They promise something that is not achievable. That's that perfect sleep. They're unable to accurately identify sleep stages. So sometimes when you are awake reading a book, it records you as being asleep. And sometimes when you're in N1, which is light sleep, it records you as being awake. It can encourage other problematic tech behaviours. If you're wearing your top technology in bed, well, it's pretty easy just to kind of go onto TikTok and other things then, isn't it? The key takeaway here, and I wish I could have this flashing, I might have to work that out next time. Be very wary of any health-related apps because data collection is their primary goal. Please don't think for a single second that health apps are trying to make you healthy because their primary goal is engagement, frequency, and data collection. Oops. Okay. So we're going to get on to actually creating some goals here. This is a sleep log. So rather than wear this thing, have this thing. And this is just a piece of paper. I know it sounds old-fashioned, I know, but it's a piece of paper on the kitchen bench. And in the morning, you come out, and where is mine now? It's not here. In the morning, you come out. You don't have this in your bedroom. It's out on the bench. And you have a go for a month, just logging your sleep. What time did I go to bed? What time did I wake up? How many hours do I estimate I slept? Was there any nighttime awakenings? And you can write them down. How do I feel upon waking? What were my sleep givers or sleep enablers? And you can list them. What were some potential sleep blockers for me? And you can list them. And hopefully you put in that last column, NA, not applicable. So let's design some sleep goals. I said at the start, I talked about this triumvirate of optimal performance. So in order for us to perform at our very best, to reach our highest potential during the day, these three pillars, they're like a three-legged stool. No one wants to sit on a stool that's got a wonky leg. So nutrition, exercise, and sleep, they're all super, super important. But let's look at some sleep goals that are specific, smart. These are SMART goals, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. This is a great way to set some goals. So let's do it. Let's work on one together. I'm going to do one with you, and then I'm going to send this to you tomorrow. So what is my intention? What do I hope to achieve? So for me, I'm going to keep a sleep log for a month. This is a new idea for me. I haven't done this before. I've been getting increasingly worried about wearables and sleep trackers and reading the research on them. So now I'm going to keep my own sleep log because I wouldn't in a million years wear a sleep tracker. So what are the specifics? On paper, and I'm going to fill it out each morning, and I'm going to take 30 seconds to fill it out. It's not you don't come out and write an essay. It's 30 seconds. How will I measure this? So I'm making a SMART goal here. How will I measure it? How often am I going to do it? Well, I'm going to do it for a month. I'm going to do it every day for a month. I want to see what patterns are emerging. Is this attainable? Yes, I can think I can do this. I'm going to keep it on the kitchen bench. I'm going to estimate it will take me 30 seconds tops. And if I travel, I'm going to take it with me. It's a piece of paper. I'm just going to take it with me. Is this relevant? Yes, I think it is. I think that I already do a lot to enable high quality sleep, but this is something I haven't tried before, and I don't want to use a sleep tracker. It might not work for me, but I'm willing to give this a go. And finally, is it time bound? What's my timing? Well, I began this last night. I had it on the bench waiting for me this morning, and the idea came from the Harvard Sleep Research Center. I'm going to do this for the month of April. I'll let you know how I go. I'll put something on Instagram about how I go. All right. So I'm going to send this to you tomorrow so that you can make your own sleep goals, and you might do them about a wind down routine. You might do them about some of those other sleep essentials, and I'll be sending you some of those tomorrow too. So accountability is a big thing. When we set a goal, it's all very well to set a goal. We've all done New Year's resolutions and nothing's ever happened. So we have to be accountable. We have to hold ourselves accountable to them. So here are some ways you can do that. Well, why wouldn't you do that? I mean, the first one for me is just, well, why would I not do this? This is like so important. The next one is to create a little mission statement, to write it down. It's incredible. The human brain loves it when we write something down and put it up. It has a big impact on the human brain. So just make a little mission statement about improving your sleep over the next 6 months. Write it down, keep it handy. Design some SMART goals, write them down, keep them handy. Find an accountability partner, and then you can modify your goals as required. But have someone, you can say to someone in your family or someone, if you don't have someone living in the same house, someone close to you that lives somewhere else, and say, look, I'm really working on my sleep at the moment. It's a big goal for me in 2023. Can you check in on me from time to time and just ask me how I'm going with that? Because I'm trying this, this, and this, and I really need someone to hold me to it. Modify your goals, of course, as required. Learn from any mistakes you make, or when you slip back, of course you will, and celebrate your achievements. But your whole body will celebrate your achievements if you're sleeping better. So I want to just encourage you. Anything like this is a process, and we can move back and forth. These arrows possibly should go both ways. But first we need to become aware that there's something that needs to be changed. Then we imagine a different way. Then we experiment. We reflect on our experiments. We adjust. We reset. Try them again or try something different. And then we embed into habits, good, healthy habits. Any questions? Oof, we are skating close to the edge here. We've only got a few minutes left. But I wonder if there are any questions, and I'm going to have to see if I can find my chat bar for them. Let me stop share off. These are the ways you can contact me, but I'm going to be in contact with you tomorrow with some resources too. Or you can just call me too. Just call me and we can have a chat about sleep, because I have done a lot of looking into this.